Hey guys, so Chainsaw Man, the first PV or official animated trailer or whatever, just recently dropped. I think it was confirmed for a while that Chainsaw Man was going to be getting an anime, but we just got the first like real animated trailer just a few days ago, and let me tell you, I'm hyped. I'm really hyped for this. Um, More so, I think, than any other anime series prior to, or anime like season prior to releasing. And I mean, it's for good reason. I mean, just from like the animation alone in the trailer, I mean, if if the show can be consistently like half as good as the animation we saw in that trailer, I think we're in for a real treat. It definitely looks like MAPPA gave, because MAPPA is animating Chainsaw Man. It definitely looks like they gave it the Jujutsu Kaisen treatment of just stellar animation all the way through. But we'll have to see. But my hopes are up. My hopes are really high. Um, but yeah, Mappa's been killing it lately. Like Jujutsu Kaisen was incredible animation. I mean, Attack on Titan, they have Zombieland Saga. I'm personally a big fan of. I'm pretty sure God of High School was also Mappa. I haven't actually watched that, but I heard that that is got some really good animation also. So yeah, if they keep this up with Chainsaw Man, I think we're all in for a real treat here. Um, but yeah, I think Chainsaw Man's gonna be big once it gets this anime thing, because like just thinking about it, like Jujutsu Kaisen is huge, for example. After getting that anime, after its anime or adaptation, um, because of just the stellar animation. But the difference between Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen, from my point of view, is that I had not heard of Jujutsu Kaisen before it got the anime adaptation. Chainsaw Man, however, I have. And for another example, I don't know, Demon Slayer. I had not heard of Demon Slayer until it got the anime adaptation. And but then again, Chainsaw Man I have, and I've read Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man has like a huge following already, and that's before it even has the anime adaptation. Um, and if you know anime like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen can get this huge off of just absolutely stellar animation, I think Chainsaw Man is going to be really big, considering it also already has such a huge following and such a huge community as just a manga. And now that it looks like it's going to be an anime on the caliber of these other, great animes, I think it's going to be really big. Here's hoping. uh, you know, Now that I say that, it's going to be like awful animation, but I jinxed it. But sure, I've got my hopes up really high. I think it's definitely going to be a really big thing. Um, but yeah, with that being said, I'm just going to talk about Chainsaw Man, what I like about it in the series. So if you have not read the manga and you're watching this, manga spoilers ahead. But be on the lookout for Chainsaw Man, and it's going to be. I guarantee it's going to be huge once it gets this adaptation. But anyway, Chainsaw Man was a very surprisingly good experience when I read the manga. It's so different from a lot of series. It very much seems like something very fresh in the shonen genre. Just from like the first chapter, like it really had me hooked. The thing about the first chapters of manga is that they're usually like long. they're usually, the average manga chapter is usually in like the teens in terms of pages, like 15 to 19 pages, something like that. For shonen, that is. Seinen's obviously a completely different entity, but for the first chapters, they usually go a bit longer because the debut and they want to have like a good hook or whatever going. So it'll probably be more like the 30 to 40 page range. And not Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, the first chapter feels like it could be a one shot in that it pretty much wraps up the entire like character of Denji in that just one chapter. The character of Denji so far, obviously he continues to grow afterwards, but like where we're introduced to him, we're introduced to his conflict, and we're introduced to like his dream. Like his dream is to have like everyday things that normal people would take for granted. Particularly, he wants to be hugged by a girl, or to have, I think it was toast with jam on it, something like that. And at the end, he meets Makima, and she promises him toast with jam on it. So he gets his dream. He, defeats the big bad boss guys that were making him pay off his father's debt or whatever. And the implication is he goes to live happily ever after. Using his demon or devil hunting powers for good or whatever. That alone, obviously. It's definitely set up for a bigger series, but that chapter alone could very realistically be a one-shot, in that it pretty much wraps up everything that the first chapter set up, other than like the broader world that starts to get introduced at the very end with Makima and the public safety devil hunter group. I forget what they're called. I think it's public safety, right? Something like that. But yeah. But it really is just such a strong hook, and it is very unique in how I don't want to say it, just like the structure of it is very unique. Well, for one thing, it seems to be operating on a part structure similar to JoJo. I don't know if it's going to end up with I say that because part 1 is concluded in the manga, and part 1 is like an anime adaptation, and a part 2 has been hinted at, well, not hinted at, confirmed pretty much, by the manga author. It is yet to start, but it'll be coming eventually. If it does eventually become like I don't know, multiple parts, becoming a long running series, but operating in a part like structure, then it could very much have that similar feel to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I don't really know if there's any other series that operate on a part structure like JoJo. As far as I know, that's a totally unique thing to JoJo. So already picking up that thing makes it one of only 2 things that have followed that basic structure. But it's really too early to comment too much on that, as currently there is only 1 part. So we'll have to see how it goes. But also just like it's really interesting how like fatal it is, I guess, because characters will get introduced and just die the same chapter, or even characters that seem like they're going to be important. And they are maybe for their arc, or that specific arc that they're introduced will probably die like 10-15 chapters down the line, to the point where by the end of the series it's literally like just Denji and that one mentor character with the scar on his face that I forget the name of, but other than that, like, everybody's dead. I'm sure there's a few others that I'm forgetting, but like those are like the only 2 main characters that I can think of that are alive by the end. And just like everybody dies, man. And that could maybe also be like a criticism. Like, it's a complete opposite spectrum of One Piece, where One Piece is often criticized for being too cautious about killing off its characters and doing like fake out death scenes. Chainsaw Man will just introduce like a million characters, and all of them are dead within a chapter. But I mean, that it goes a long way to show the stakes of what's happening in the show, or in the, like, it's not really a show yet, in the manga. But yeah, and like with like the gun devil, like that whole thing with the gun devil, where he emerged from the sea and then like killed like a few hundred people, like with all the names just kind of listed on the panel. I thought that was such a cool thing. It almost reminds me of that sort of like police report type of thing that Jujutsu Kaisen does in the manga. It also does in the anime, but not quite as well. Well, no, it does it well, but it's not exactly the same, in which Jujutsu Kaisen in the manga usually has just a black panel with just like text, and it's like a police report. So like with the cursed Wu mark, it was like, the 3 first years were dispatched on the scene, and 1 died, and obviously, yeah, and that's the setup for like the arc. Or with that one character's mom that died. I'm forgetting everybody's name. What was his name? It doesn't matter. This is a Chainsaw Man video, by the way. I'm talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. Um, but yeah, stuff like that, like it goes black and it's a police report. It's kind of a similar feel with um, Chainsaw Man, where like the gun devil like attacks, and we see like all the like the names listed that died in like the few seconds that he was attacking or whatever. Um, yeah, it's a lot of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of like very unique elements that are kind of put together in Chainsaw Man, like the police report type feel um, from Jujutsu Kaisen, where like that was the first time I've seen that kind of like thing employed. It's being used in Chainsaw Man, and the part structure from JoJo, where that's the only real time I've seen that employed. That's being used in Chainsaw Man, and just like the way the story is written, like I really don't know how to describe it in words, but it's just it's so unique in that, I mean, basically the entire thing is technically one arc. Um, it's called the public safety arc, but it is, technically divided into smaller arcs. Um, but like Denji, for example, I think he's the best way to explain how different it is, because he's not your typical shonen protagonist with a big dream. He gotta fulfill. He's not trying to be the Hokage. He's not trying to be the Wizard King. He's not trying to find the One Piece. Um, Sometimes, like he like I said in the first chapter, he completed his dream of getting jam on toast by the end of the first chapter. So like he has just a bunch of short-term goals, and then like usually by the end of like an arc or two, he'll accomplish them. And the only like really big like goal that was consistent throughout the entirety of part one was Makima. But at the end of part one, well, I guess depending on how you interpret the final Makima's fate at the end of part one, you could argue whether or not Denji actually accomplished his goal. But in any case, that goal has either been accomplished or is now impossible to be accomplished, depending on how you interpret it. But yeah, which means, part two, if he has some sort of goal, it'll be entirely different, because basically Denji just has a bunch of short-term goals that'll be accomplished over an arc or two, with the exception of Makima, and that's just kind of how it is. He's not actively working towards some big, defined goal that's like right at the start of the series and consistent the whole way through. But yeah, that's pretty unique. I also like the power system. How the power system is literally just names or titles. We're like literally, it's such a simple way to do it, but it's really effective, in which like you instantly know how powerful a character is just based on what the name of their devil is. It's the name of the devil that a character has, or if the devil itself, if they're just straight up fighting the devil, is basically whatever. If violent thoughts are associated with that specific word or title that the devil has, then that devil is more violent. Obviously a chainsaw, that's that obviously has some mental association with violence. Horror movies, big guy has a chainsaw and a ski mask, going hacking up people, whatever. Whereas something like the fox devil is pretty common. It's a fox, I mean, maybe it'll bite you or whatever, but I mean, foxes are pretty chill, I think. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't encountered a fox. But like a fox devil, we saw pretty much like one of the most common devils, because it's pretty docile towards humans, and allows them to make contracts pretty easily. And like there's also like the primal fears, like the darkness devil. I could go talk about like, the darkness devil for ages, because that's like one of the coolest scenes in Chainsaw Man, in my humble opinion. I don't think that's a terribly unpopular opinion though either. But like the darkness double, the idea that like the primal fears, the fears rooted in like human nature, from back in the primordial age or whatever, uh, are the fears that have like the strongest devils. So like darkness, everybody's afraid of the dark subconsciously, at least a little bit, because that just goes back to being a stupid monkey brain. So naturally, the darkness devil is going to be one of, if not the strongest, devils. Um, which I think it really is just like one of the simplest to understand power systems, but also probably the most creative. Um, and that like you can instantly understand how powerful an enemy is just by learning their name. And that's really creative in my opinion. I really liked that once that was explained. But that being said, I've kind of rambled on about Chainsaw Man for quite a bit now. So with that being said, yeah, very hyped about the Chainsaw Man anime. I think this has the potential to be the big guy, the big big Kahuna. Um, that was cringe. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, whatever. It's gonna be huge. I'm betting on that. But with that being said, I guess that's all I have to say. So see ya.